session coming up in January.
Yes.
Any issues that you've kind of been working on? I've seen there's been some budget work done, some tax reform stuff. What's on your agenda to hopefully either cut government or reform taxes?
Well, you know, for Republicans, really, we're talking about personal responsibility and less government. I mean, that's the bottom line right there. Those are the cornerstones of the Republican platform, the Republican Party. So we're looking for less government. We're looking for more personal responsibility. Our laws that we're enacting and discussing enacting are the constitutional, and you have to ask yourself those fundamental questions first before you get into the debate on the value of the legislation. But now, looking back on last year, had you told us that medical marijuana, cannabinoid oil, cannabidiol oil would have been a major issue, you would have said, what?
And you've worked really closely with those families too, that it's affected, that they'll have great support from this.
Well, I think,
yes.
Senator, you serve on the study committee, meeting all over the state on the issue, haven't you been?
That's correct. We've had a number of study committees, Mercer University, Atlanta. We'll have a couple of one in Gwinnett. We'll have a couple more before the session starts. But you know, when we let politics and personalities get in the way of principle and of policy, then we're making mistakes. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we get personalities and politics out of it, and make sure we're voting on principles and policy.
Right. Aaron, what are some of the issues you're looking at?
Well, just to touch base really on the medical cannabis, you know, that's going to be a huge issue coming up. And, you know, I don't understand how we as a state in Georgia can ignore the children that this can so greatly benefit. And it's just a no-brainer issue for me.
Bottom line is we will not ignore them. And, you know, I like to hear it referred to as you spoke, cannabidiol oil, or rather than medical marijuana, because it has nothing to do with the psychotropic effects of marijuana. It has nothing to do with smoking marijuana. It has nothing to do with going down the slippery slope of recreational marijuana. It has to do with cannabidiol oil, treatment for epilepsy, for a very narrow severe medical condition, very narrow application. And one of the other big questions, one of the other big issues will be transportation, and how do we fund transportation going forward? As we look at funding transportation, we're going to have certain challenges, and we're going to have to be able to address those. Senator Gooch and the others from the Senate Study Committee on Transportation, as well as the Joint Study Committee from the House on Transportation, have done a great job this summer going all over the state, hearing from constituents, hearing from citizens, hearing from business people, hearing from individuals about what we need in terms of transportation for the state.
Jeff, I'll tell you, there's one more thing going on this session that I know the senator might be a little modest to talk about, but it's out there that there's a race for majority leader, and you might have a passing interest in that race.
You know, really, we need to be focusing. Everybody
Gotcha, journalism.
Smug smile. If you can't see this, if you're hearing it on the radio, everybody's got a smug smile right now. But the fact of the matter is, we need to be focusing on one thing and one thing only: re-electing our constitutional officers for the state, the governor, lieutenant governor, etc., but also electing David Perdue to our United States Senate office. We need to be focusing on that right now, and thank you for mentioning it. It is an issue. It is something that we need to address, but let's address that at the proper time, and let's make sure that we are electing our constitutional officers and that we're electing a United States Senator that we can be proud of.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you, Senator Butch Miller, for joining us live from Perry, Georgia. Are you going to get on the Ferris wheel later?
Everything's live in Perry.
Appreciate
Thank y'all.
Sir. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Y'all have a great day.
And,
Thanks, Al. Thank you, Jeff.
We got Georgia GOP Chairman John Padgett going to join us here in a second here. As you can see, this is a very fluid, exciting environment here. We're pleased to welcome John. Looks like they're doing a rousing UGA cheering factor over there. We got Chairman John Padgett. John, welcome to the show today. This is a combination of Greg's List Live, the Aaron McCready Show, and Charles with Henry County. We're doing a kind of a triumvirate of conservative broadcasters.
Well, I've been in this building for 20 minutes,
and way more than half the building is full, and I finally saw my first Jason Carter sign. So I can tell you the Perdue and Deal folks are here, out in force, ready to go, excited. This is probably the most excitement with a Republican group that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, you gotta say, look, we wanted, Governor Deal to be able to coast through, but the excitement of actually having some competition in this state, which, past couple cycles we haven't, I think it's really brought out the best in the Republican Party. You've organized a state party more than, frankly, it's been organized in my memory. Tell us a little bit about what you've done with the RNC, about the victory centers and some of the get out the vote stuff.
Well, thank you, Greg. We have 17 offices staffed around the state right now. We make volumes of phone calls and knocking on doors. We're already up to about 650,000 in the state. We'll get over 1 million.
That's awesome.
We've probably had election cycles before when there's a party when we didn't need to make a lot of it, maybe 25,000. So this effort is absolutely the best we've ever made, ever.
What? Explain to our listeners why it's so important that we really get out the vote. The Republican Party gets out the vote, because if we don't get out the vote, we cannot afford another Democratic governor and a Democratic senator.
Well, it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, we got challenged because we were told by the Democrats we didn't have a ground game that matched theirs. I think they're finding out in the state of Georgia our ground game is pretty significant. It's important to the whole country that we do well in Georgia. We can't afford to lose a Senate seat, put Harry Reid back in power again. We've got to do something to blunt some of the stuff that our president is doing that, just to be candid with you, not good for this country. My guess is most of the people, whether Democrats or Republicans that are listening to you right now, would agree that a whole lot of the things that Obama is doing these days is not good for the country. So that's why what we're doing is so important. Plus, for the state of Georgia, Nathan Deal has done a superior job as our governor. It's not the time to turn him out, it's the time to encourage him, because he's got great plans for the next 4 years.
Right. Well, one of the things I was looking at was Michelle Nunn's campaign plan, where it showed that she was going to struggle south of Atlanta. I mean, you got a candidate that basically needs a passport to come south of Atlanta, and she wants to represent the state of Georgia and be just a blueprint and a stamp for Harry Reid and Barack Obama.
Well, she's having a pretty tough time in way North Georgia too. I was up through there the other day making speeches one Saturday. I went through Gainesville, up around Clayton, Dahlonega, Blairsville, back down to Commerce. I didn't see a single Nunn or Jason Carter sign. Now, signs don't win you campaigns, but they give you a little indication of what kind of support you're enjoying.
Right. Now, how's our fundraising looking? Are we looking to be able to close out? Are we prepared for a runoff in case there is?
Yeah, we're prepared. We're not gonna leave any money on the table though, getting through this general election. But we're prepared if we have to go into a runoff. We'll have plenty of money to do the job, and if we get forced into a runoff, then we'll just go do the job and turn out our vote again, and be sure we'll have enough money to do it.
Now, there's a Thursday night get out a victory dinner for the Georgia GOP. Can you talk about that for a minute?
The victory plan is the political plan of the state Republican Party that we use all of that money basically for the campaigns. This is a big event for us. I can't tell you how much money we're going to raise, but it's a significant amount of money that will go into these campaigns.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate it, Chairman Padgett.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
you for helping put together this big crowd. And that was Georgia GOP Chairman John Padgett. We've got a couple different camera angles here. It's almost like being
We do.
And wow. Hey guys. Excellent. Good to see you, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks for stopping by.
You know, we've just got basically the conservative all-star team here. Congressman Austin Scott, former state rep from here, former gubernatorial candidate, and now second-term congressman.
That's right.
You're from Tifton, Georgia.
Grew up in Tifton, and happy to represent the Perry, Warner Robins area and Robins Air Force Base. Have the privilege of serving on the Armed Services Committee and in the Ag Committee in Washington.
So what's been your first couple terms in Congress like? Is it different than what you expected, or what were you thinking going in, and what do you think now?
You know, the problem in Washington is that the decisions up there are made based on emotions, not based on facts. And if you just do the math, as the father of a 15-year-old son, the $17 trillion in debt, is a problem for our country.
Yep.
And if you look at where the cuts are going to national security, the only thing that that the president and Harry Reid seem to be willing to cut is national security. If you look at our budget numbers over the course of the next 10 years and what happens to our national security, it will be less than 10% of total federal spending. And if we're not able to change this thing, we will actually spend more 10 years from now on the interest on the national debt than we spend on national security. And that's just not the America that our people want. And we've got a responsibility to change that.
Now, Aaron, you've been talking a lot of foreign policy stuff on your show. I know you'd love to chat with Congressman Scott here about some of the issues you brought up.
Well, sure. You know, in my opinion, it is so important that we have strong leadership in Washington, not only in the White House, but the support that the president gets and the advice the president gets. And this day and age, especially with ISIS,
Right.
We are facing some of the biggest threats this country's faced. And it's so important that we elect someone like David Perdue in Washington to help have steady leadership through these tough times.
So let me say this about ISIS. The ISIL is actually where they're trying to put back together the Islamic State. ISIS is the group in Syria. Either way, they're terrorist organizations that, quite honestly, they don't care who they kill, and they do it in a brutal and a barbaric fashion. This group didn't just pop up 6 months ago.
Right.
They have been out there for a long time. I would encourage people to go back and look what Secretary Clapburn had to say after the president threw him under the bus and blamed things on him. And this is an issue where we've got to protect Americans. The president's plan and the idea that we can do with 5,000 Syrian rebels that we don't know, that have never met each other, what couldn't be done with 100,000 Iraqi soldiers that trained for 10 years.
Right.
That's just simply not a workable plan. His Secretary of Defense made the statement, we're at war and all options are on the table. And literally a couple of hours later, the president comes out and says, I will not commit ground troops. So when we're not on the same page, we're certainly not prepared to go in the battle.
Congressman Scott, pleasure to
Thanks
see
for
you
having
again.
us.
Thanks for stopping by.
Austin was elected president of the freshman class when he went up there, clearly representing Georgia in the best ways. And now that we're focusing on national defense so much, it's good to have a Georgia Bulldog up
That's
there. 'Cause
right.
We know there's a big old bite up there.
Glad to be there. Thanks for having us. And look, we got a great country. We got better days ahead.
That's awesome. Thank you, Congressman Scott.
Thank you, Congressman.
And our next guest, we just got him pouring in here, is State Senator Ross Tollison.
How y'all
Mr.
doing?
Tollison, hey, I'm Greg Williams with Greg's List Live.
Doing okay.
Aaron McCready with the Aaron McCready Show.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Ross Tollison, he's the state senator from Perry, Georgia.
Perry, Georgia.
Area, and
Right.
I guess a little Warner Robins or...
I have the bulk of Houston County, all of Pulaski County, all of Bleckley County, and all of Lawrence County.
And it looks like y'all are ready for a big show
Yeah,
tonight.
got them rocking and rolling.
We
in
said
here
earlier,
tonight.
it has a big feeling of a big heavyweight fight tonight.
It does, doesn't
It
it?
really does.
Well, it probably will be like that too, no doubt.
What are you hearing on the ground down here? Because both Nunn and Perdue claim to be from here. I know David Perdue is. It's the other one that we're a little unsure of.
I think David's going to do fine here. I think he'll win the county.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what tight margin it'll be, but I feel like he'll win the county.
Yeah, we need a big margin here. Perdue, as far as debates goes, with the Republican primary and then the runoff, he is clearly battle tested and ready for a debate.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think tonight will show a lot of difference between him and her.
And on a side note, too, Michelle Nunn during the primaries would not attend some of the debates also. So that's going to put her a little bit behind during this debate with David Perdue.
Well, I think at the end of the day, you look at who's most qualified for the job, and he is. I like Michelle, I know her, but she's the least qualified person for the job.
And let's talk about the governor's race. Obviously, the governor's race a little bit closer than we would like. I do appreciate the competition, though, because it really has brought out the Republican ground game that the Democrats thought was non-existent.
Yeah.
Why do you think we need Deal in there for another 4 years?
Well, I think he's done a great job. He's great to work with on issues and talk to on issues. Jason Carter, I know him from serving in the Senate with him, but he's not qualified to be governor of the state of Georgia.
Yes, I mean, he was a state senator for 4 years really kind of backed away from any major controversial legislation. Even the cityhood debate that he campaigned so vigorously against, he ran out before the vote. I mean, what kind of lesson or message does that send to you
Not
guys?
good. You know, it's not good, and I don't think he's even remotely qualified to be governor of the state of Georgia.
Well, we've been through this before too. Our current president wasn't qualified to become president. He was only a senator for a number of years.
Right.
You equate that over to the governor's race, and if he gets elected governor, we could be in the same position on a smaller level that the nation is.
There is no doubt about it.
What kind of, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but clearly you're going to be in the assembly next year. What kind of legislation are you looking at? The medical cannabis obviously looks like that's an important one. Anything else besides that that's on your radar?
Not really. It's this fall we start looking at everything, you know, probably end of this month or something.
Maybe November 5th?
Yeah.
I was about to say, it will. I am confident that we will wake up November 5th to Senator David Perdue and Governor Deal, but you do have to kind of wait to make sure that
you do. You don't never know in this business.
The gubernatorial part for real, because that's the part that has the most direct impact on the lives of Georgia.
It's all about turnout too.
Yep.
So we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, that's why we're broadcasting from here, to try to build some excitement, and we really appreciate having you on the
You're sure welcome. Great to see y'all.
Before you get out of here, real quickly, I just want to know what a great American Senator Ross Tolleson is, and what kind of guy brings his wife to a debate for her 35th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Senator Tolleson, you are the man.
A great American.
You are a great American. You are the man.
The last of the romantics.
What a way to spend your anniversary.
We had no idea that we had such a romantic. Did you bring her like a box of chocolates and put it on her chair or something? No.
Believe me, gentlemen, she's not only the looks, but she's also the brains of the outfit.
No doubt.
There's certainly
She's
no
precious.
war. There's not a war on women, it's a war on romance, apparently.
That's right.
Sally and Ross Tolleson, 35 years.
Yep. Great to see y'all.
Well, congratulations. We had no idea. So you've got this massive Super Bowl of debates and your wedding anniversary.
Right.
A great night for the Tolleson.
All hanging out,
Pleasure
man.
meeting you, sir.
I'm just
Come back
glad.
on our show and let us know how that doghouse
I'll
is.
do it. I'm just glad she hadn't run me off yet.
Hey, Tim, you want to come on the show? We're doing a little bit of ESPN game day style here. It's Charles, why don't you get on camera for a minute?
Get back on the other side of the camera, guys. Y'all are talking to much more important people than I am.
Well, you know.
While you're talking, are you guys able to hear the chants in the background?
No, I mean, is there something going on here?
Yeah, you've got some chants in the background with the big Michelle Nunn sign right behind you saying "No more deal," and then on the other side they're responding with "No more taxes." And so it seems like a nice little battle back, and it sounds kind of like a college game day up here.
That's awesome. I mean, it really is. And I mean, unfortunately, the signs aren't quite as clever as the ones you see on the Ole Miss campus.
But nobody's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So are we at the end, like game day, going to go through and have our predictions of who's going to win?
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to put my Michelle Nunn hat on.
Greg, real quick,
and then take it off real quick.
There you go.
Put on the Governor Deal one.
Greg, you and I real quick off camera were talking about the unemployment rate in the state of Georgia, and I think that the Michelle Nunn campaign is really hammering, or not the Jason Carter campaign is really hammering on the unemployment rate being at 8.1%.
Yeah.
Now we talked about that a little earlier and talked about the Washington Journal article that actually debunked that 8.1%. Right. Will you elaborate a little bit on that for the viewers that may not have seen that yet?
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal article, basically unemployment rates, there's two surveys that come out. There's the payrolls survey, which is a non-farm, and then there's a household employment survey, and that survey is only 5,000 people across the United States, and it factors in what's called the labor force participation rate.
That's it.
And when people
define that real quick. What is labor force participation?
When people leave the workforce,
right,
either because they're frustrated, they can't find a job, or they retire, that lowers the labor force participation rate. And right now, we're below 63%, I believe, which is the lowest in about 50 years. Now, some of that's attributed to the baby boomers, but a lot of it, unfortunately, is attributed to the fact that we've made people comfortable by not working. And most compassionate conservatives don't want to end all social programs, but we do need to go go back from welfare to workfare, something that worked in the late 90s when we had a Democrat president and a...
Where have I heard that before?
I believe from Jack Kingston.
There you go, the Jack Kingston campaign. And Greg, what it basically means is there were people that were looking for a job that just quit. They just said, you know what, there's no jobs out there for me. I'll just sit at home and wait for the market to bounce back. Well, now you're seeing the market starting to bounce back thanks to all of the jobs that Governor Deal is bringing to the state of Georgia. And so people are starting to re-enter the market. I, for one, think that new rate is a good thing. That means people are getting back into the job market.
I'm going to let you guys meet the State Rep Tim Barr here.
Okay.
He's going to take my place. Let y'all do a little interview, and then I'll do the behind the scenes.
There you go. There you go.
Well, what are you looking for in tonight's debate?
You know, I want to see some spirited debate, to be honest with you. I want to hear some tough questions, and I want to hear some great answers to those tough questions. I think both sides have a really interesting mantra that they're trying to push, and I think it's important to kind of weed out some of the stuff that's not true or some of the stuff that's just kind of political. You know, I was telling somebody earlier, they were talking about all of the ads they're seeing on TV, and it's like it's all negative, 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 negative. And I said, well, unfortunately that works, but what's funny about that is none of them really are true. I mean, on either side, to be honest with you. So I'd like to hear maybe some debunking of some myths, and then I want to hear not mudslinging, but what are you going to do as our next U.S. Senator or as our next state governor?
And guys, House Rep Tim Barr is joining us as well.
How are you
Tim,
doing?
it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being with us. Tim Charles Horde. It's good to meet you. Yes, sir.
Good to meet y'all.
Tell us what's going on in the State House. Are we going to get medical marijuana this next session?
There's definitely a big push that way.
Okay.
There's been the study committee over the summer.
Okay.
There's some obstacles and a little bit of tweaking that needed to be
Good deal.
done. And I think they're at that.
Understandable.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that we're hearing from the Michelle Nunn campaign is the fact that Governor Deal is defunding schools. Now, I happen to work directly for State Representative Brian Strickland, and I know that you guys passed a huge budget this year, which included a lot of money for schools and ended furlough days. So debunk that myth for me tonight,
Absolutely.
please.
No, the governor really did an excellent job at funding our schools.
Yeah.
He didn't mandate exactly where they had to spend their money.
Okay.
Which I like as a Republican.
Sure.
He let each school district say, hey, look, you know, here's the extra money we're putting back this year. Where y'all see the need, let's do that. Let's go for that. And most of that, you know, absolutely went to great causes.
That's great. Aaron, any questions?
Well, jump into the governor's debate, and you being in the legislature, and really Carter coming from the Gold Dome as well.
Right.
Is he ready to be governor?
You know, anybody who's ever met Carter will say he is absolutely a nice guy. I worked with him on several things. He's a nice guy. Right now, Deal is the man we need in office. Absolutely. I'm a small business guy. I've seen firsthand and have been a part of making Georgia #1 place to do business.
Right.
And absolutely, we need Governor Deal back in a bad way. We're still not where we need to be in Georgia. And Carter's just not there yet.
I'll tell you what concerns me. You know, Carter I think he has good intentions. He wants to fund schools, and that's a great and noble cause. But the number that he's throwing around is in the billions, and that's with a B. And the question has been asked of him, where are you going to find this money without raising taxes on Georgia? And his answer is really, I don't know. I mean, there's been several different ideas that he's thrown out there.
Well, and I think he's trying to just throw money at the problem. You look at the Washington, D.C. school system, the most funded public education in the country, and they have one of the worst rates. So
that's right.
I think he's just trying to throw money at the problem and not come with real solutions.
And throwing money sounds good. It's not the solution Georgia needs.
Right.
We need some thought out solutions for our state and my children.
Yeah.
And money's not the answer. I believe if he gets in, he will bring the Washington mentality to Georgia of throwing money at things, and that's not what we need.
I understand too that Jason Carter was raised in Chicago. Is that a proven fact?
That's what I've heard, but no, sir, I don't.
Okay,
know
I just don't know if we need another Chicago liberal in office. You know.
Well, that is, we don't. I mean, you look at his grandfather, bless his heart, and he brings a lot of those same ideas. Absolutely.
That's right.
Well, even in the Senate debate coming up here shortly, Michelle Nunn claims to be a true Georgian, but yet when her father was senator, she went to school in Washington, D.C. most of the time. So David Perdue grew up here, was raised here, he knows Georgians, and we can't afford not to have him in office.
You know, again, going back to this businessman that he is, we definitely need him.
Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely.
What are you looking for in tonight's debates?
Well, I think some of the things I think a message of who we are as conservative Republicans, and make sure folks understand that well. We need to articulate well our message. And not get sidetracked and not get back and forth into this throwing a grenade kind of.
Right. Just stick to the issues, and Republicans are on the right side of these issues.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great seeing you, sir.
Thank you both.
Hey, how are you doing? Aaron McGrady.
Yes, I know.
Hey, we're playing that way.
Yeah, well, I'll be there either way.
Folks, it's very fluid here. We have people coming left and right. Like I said, it's our college game day.
Yeah.
We're ready for a great fight tonight.
And guys, we just as how we are bipartisan, as long as you're a good person, we don't care if you vote D or R. We're going to try to convince you to vote R. Mr. Dubose Porter, his name starts with D, so it's going to be really hard to convince him. He is the state chair of the Democrat Party, and it just feels like the Super Bowl or March Madness all in one, doesn't it?
All in one place. This is where you can feel it finally. This is what we love. It's better than the Super Bowl to people like us. But there's more at stake than the Super Bowl in this election too. I mean, this really is a crossroads of where we're going to be in the state. And we see it on those issues that we know are important. Do you care about education and funding? Do you care about job training? Do you care about clean air and water? Do you care about funding our Hope Scholarship? Do you care about fixing our roads and the traffic in Atlanta? These are issues that have been ignored or cut or put to the side. And if you want to make them a priority again, you're going to elect Michelle Nunn and Jason Carter and Connie Stokes in November.
I give the Democrats credit. They are farther along than I think most Republican prognosticators thought that they would be at this point. Y'all do seem energized on your level. I do want to make a point though, Republicans and Democrats, all the ones I've met that care about public service, we want the same things. We just have different ways of going about them, and I think history has shown that conservative policies can work, and there are some liberal policies that have worked as well. So it's a matter of finding the right balance, in my opinion, because you look at the state of Georgia, and we're improving. Governor Deal's able to increase the education budget by over $500.
Yeah, but he still cut $2 billion. That's not right to say that he just increased it to $500 when you still cut in the austerity cuts $2 billion. So you're really not being truthful to the voters about that after cutting it over $8 billion before that when you accumulate the 4 years. So we've got to be truthful about where that really is.
Well, we are, and we went from $17 billion after the recession to an annual budget of $20.8 billion, which is a 25% increase, which that doesn't sound too fiscally conservative or Tea Party cutting on government to me. Sounds like we're restoring the proper level of government and funding and getting the teacher furlough days taken care of and keeping Hope Scholarship viable.
Well, that's not true either. When you have the biggest reduction in Hope Scholarship, and the biggest problem is Hope grants. Our technical colleges are one of the best in the country, and you have 40,000 less students because they can't afford the difference in the tuition. We would be putting that many more people into jobs if we fully funded the Hope grant and technical colleges. That's why we're number one in unemployment, because we have an untrained workforce. We have the mechanism to do it. We have to make it a priority. Some tax breaks we can't afford to give, and that is what has happened, and they haven't generated the jobs that were promised. Whatever you say about the climate, we're still the number one in unemployment in the country.
Well, those are facts, and we also have other facts that show we're the sixth best state for net job creation. Depends on how you look at it. Dubose, pleasure having you on today. Good luck in November. I don't really mean that, but it is a pleasure meeting you.
Well, let's talk again after November the 4th, too. And listen, look forward to tonight. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the equal time.
We
appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you. Anytime.
And we're joined now by former Governor Sonny Perdue, who was part of the Republican Revolution back in 2002. Governor Perdue, great.
Governor Perdue, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So we're right in your home area. It looks like it's Perdue country around here. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's Perdue country literally and figuratively. This is David and my hometown. home county. I grew up in Bon Air, he in Warner Robins, so we got a great extended family here. So, but it's also a great political base. I was very fortunate, and I think it says something about a candidate. If they can't be endeared in their own hometown, then people away should be suspicious.
Now, Michelle Nunn also claims she's from here.
Well, her father's from here, and she was primarily raised in Washington, D.C., but
right.
It's okay. We'll claim those citizens too, and glad to have everybody here today at the fair.
And tell us why it's so important that we elect David Perdue to the United States Senate. We cannot afford to have another Democrat up there, and especially with the leadership that we have right now in the White House, we need David Perdue to represent Georgia values.
Well, I'm glad you said it, because I would say the same thing and echo amen. But the fact is, you have to look at the direction of our country the last 6 years. I don't know that we can really stand 2 more years even of the status quo and the trend that we're heading in. You think about the individual liberties and freedoms that have been erased over the last 6 years, and it's rather frightening. So we need to reverse that. We cannot give President Obama a blank check on judicial appointments over the next 2 years. You know that the Senate and Harry Reid changed the Senate rules so that 50 votes can ratify judicial nominees. That's a very serious matter, not just for this election, but the rest of our lifetimes.
Yeah, and you got to look at, is David Perdue battle-tested and business savvy? I think clearly the debates and the vigorous competition that he went through to win the Republican primary and then the runoff has clearly prepared him for nights like this, and his career in the private sector. So he has, in my opinion, a well-rounded resume. He's battle-tested and business savvy.
Yeah, the runoffs particularly and primaries are brutal. They're very painful, but frankly they sharpen iron. Iron sharpens iron. Jack Kingston made David a much better opponent and a much better candidate, and I think Michelle Nunn is seeing that right now. But you also make a huge fact is that David has gotten out here and raised here in middle Georgia, went to Georgia Tech, but has gone around the world creating jobs and creating economy, and that's what our nation needs now. We're still the best in the world, but we've been stagnated by policies that are disincentivizing the business, and David knows that and knows how to correct it.
Right. Now let's talk about the state a little bit. Talk about some of the programs that you implemented during your 8 years that Governor Deal was able to expand upon a little bit. Some of it was tough because of the recession, but I think Governor Deal has clearly earned re-election. How would you assess it being his immediate predecessor?
Well, there's no doubt. I went around the world selling Georgia as a corner store location on the eastern coast, and you see the Port of Savannah and all the jobs this brought, and he has continued to enhance Georgia's reputation as the #1 place to do business. And frankly, Jason Carter is too inexperienced to be governor. This is a political grab bag for him that we've seen one person in the White House in the highest office in this land with very little experience, both business and political, and it takes a while to be seasoned. Nathan Deal has that seasoning, and he obviously deserves to be reelected.
What I always tell my listeners on the radio is, when you're looking at 2 candidates, take away their names, take away their party affiliations, just look at their resumes and their experience. If you compare the 2 resumes,
it's like
Deal is the no-brainer. You have to go with him for the experience, the leadership, and the direction he's taken Georgia.
Well, absolutely. Campaigning is a job application, frankly, and that's the way we should take it. Sometimes our campaigning and all the ads and politics make it think about personalities, but it's really about job application. Who would you hire to be in the United States Senate? David Perdue or Michelle Nunn? Who would you hire to run the state of Georgia? Nathan Deal or Jason Carter? The answer is pretty clear to me. I think it's a no-brainer.
Well, we appreciate it, Governor Perdue.
Thanks,
great
guys.
to see you.
Glad to see you.
We look forward to waking up on November 5th to Senator Perdue, Governor Deal. Keep Georgia Republican red.
Welcome to Perdue country.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Right. And now we've got one of the editors over at zpolitics.com, Mr. Dwight Roberts, joining us, kind of giving, what do you think? Is this like the Super Bowl and March Madness all rolled into one?
This is wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it was wild. Now it's gotten really wild. I guess the pregame has really shown up.
Well, what are you looking for in this debate coming from Z Politics with the Senate debate and then later on the governor?
Well, with the Senate debate, I'm looking for David Perdue to really, step it up and to also really emphasize and respond back to some of the commercials that Michelle Nunn has put up. And the governor, I just expect him to keep pounding on Jason Carter, and also to pound on the fact that he knows that he is creating jobs in the state of Georgia, even despite what the Labor Department says.
Now, what do you think about Perdue? Obviously had a lot of experience during the debate cycle, during the general election, the runoff. How do you think that prepares him for tonight versus Michelle Nunn, who basically had a vacuous coronation?
Well, that's a good point. David Perdue has had lots of experience and has taken on some great challenges and challengers. Michelle Nunn, she really comes in this as a rookie. So you've got, I'll say freshman and the senior quarterback, and I think Perdue is going to throw the long ball. It's going to score a few big touchdowns.
Well, Michelle Nunn also, during her primary debates, refused to even go to those. So in this type of atmosphere on a one-on-one debate, Perdue is experienced by far, especially through the primaries and then with Kingston. We just talked to Governor Perdue, and he said it made him a much better candidate.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I know they say this is the hometown of Michelle Nunn. This feels like David Perdue's just shown up. This crowd has just gone nuts, and I'm impressed with the showing of David Perdue's team and David Perdue's fan base, so to speak. So.
Yeah, I mean, we really are in kind of both of their hometowns. We just had former Governor Sonny Perdue on, and he told us to be welcome to Perdue country, and it does feel like that.
It really does.
Do they sell hats for that? Because I really would want to wear it.
Just go around and take at least a sign. They're everywhere here.
But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting debate tonight. I think it's going to be a place where David Perdue or Michelle Nunn could really shine. I mean, this feels like there's a lot of freedom in this room to be yourself, and I like to see that. I hope to see that.
Yeah, this is certainly not one of the Atlanta Press Club. They have a very formal pomp and circumstance atmosphere. I know you're a member of the APC over there. Describe the differences between.
Well, it's
Why you've been to both kinds of events.
I'll just say yes.
Well, it's a more sterile environment. It really is than this. This is awesome because this is what makes America great. You have different viewpoints, different sides, and in an environment like this and an arena like this, you really get to hear from everyone, and it really puts the candidates in a whole different light than the protective nature of a studio.
I mean, I agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's just a free feeling where the person can just lay their hair down and just go ahead and be themselves in front of their audience, and just really reveal who they are and what their heart is, what their policy is. And I think David Perdue, actually, this is going to be a really good time for him to shine. I'm looking forward to seeing David and Governor Deal just let it out and just to be themselves and respond to a lot of the attacks that have come on them and over the TV airwaves.
So what are you going to do after the elections with zpolitics.com? It's going to get kind of boring over there, isn't it?
Yeah, it may be. I'll probably just hang out with you guys. No, I think we might be in a runoff. So Christmas is going to be sparse around my house, and we're going to, it's just going to be very busy. So,
how big of an impact would the Libertarian candidate have on this race? I mean, you've seen other candidates before, sway an election to the side. For example, the 1992 election of Bill Clinton. Had Perot not been in that race, we may have had a second term of President Bush. Could the same thing happen here?
Yeah, I think mathematically, because if you're required to have 50% of the vote, I think it's almost like tenfold chance if you have a third-party candidate involved that they could take even 3 to 5%. Yeah. Especially with a state like Georgia that's going towards purple. So a Libertarian candidate does almost, I want to say guaranteed, but it does look likely that it could go to a runoff.
So that buys us an extra 2 months of fun, right?
Yeah, and Z Politics is going to keep rolling.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Dwight.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming in. Thank you.
zpolitics.com. And as you can see, folks, we just got we're going to have Kyle Wingfield, the conservative columnist over from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Kyle, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How
Great
are you
to have you
tonight,
on.
Greg? Yeah, thank you for having me.
This is Aaron McCready from the Aaron McCready Show. We're doing kind of I mean, it really is an ESPN game day feel here, except without the cheerleaders. And we even have a few of those. Right?
We do have a few of those back there.
Yeah, it's politics is spectator sport for sure.
Yeah. So, you're obviously now that the runoff is over, able to start to opinionate about the race a little bit more. What do you like about David Perdue's candidacy, and what do you look to see tonight?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, what we see out of the candidates tonight. We've seen them in a forum before. It'll be interesting to see if we see Michelle Nunn go after him, attacking him the way she did in that last forum. I think for Perdue, I think his strong suit is two things. One, he'll go up there and he's not going to be a vote for Harry Reid. I mean, I think arguably the most important vote either of these candidates will cast in the next 2 years is for Senate Majority Leader. And there's a clear difference there, Harry Reid or somebody else. And then the second thing for him is, what he can bring in terms of a longtime businessman as far as policy solutions that will get business moving again. I think everyone agrees that the economy is not performing the way it needs to perform. Whether it's tax reform so that we stop arguing about tax inversions and start just not making companies want to flee our ridiculous tax code or something else. I think that's his wheelhouse.
Now, in hindsight, do you think that David Perdue is our best general election candidate? He was able to defeat 3 sitting congressmen with the outsider perspective. So we do have an anti-incumbent sentiment somewhat. So in hindsight, it seems he may be the best foil against Michelle Nunn. What do you think about that?
I mean, I wrote, that I liked Karen Handel very much as a candidate. I think both of them had that advantage of not being an incumbent, running against someone who has been running about the need to change Washington, right? So I think, from that perspective, it's probably good for the Republicans that they have him there instead of one of the congressmen.
Well, this environment is just electric right now for David Perdue. This is where he's from. How will he play towards this crowd? What will Michelle Nunn do to go against that? And both candidates with this environment not being in the studio, how will it benefit both?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, to see do they talk about different issues. Obviously, this is an agriculture-centric event that they're having this debate at. I was just down visiting a farmer down in farther south earlier today, and this is farm country, and that was something that Perdue is dinged Nunn for, is rating that very low on our list of priorities in that infamous memo that was leaked. So will Perdue try to play to that? Will Nunn try to make up for it? That'll be one of the things I'm looking for.
Well, it was interesting because her own campaign plan basically said she needed a passport to travel south of Atlanta. So hey, here she is. Clearly, this side of the room, y'all can hear this really. I almost feel like I'm in Athens, Georgia, for Georgia LSU last year, which was just an electric environment. You got me and Kyle, both Bulldogs from the best college town in America. Aaron's one of our adopted fans.
Adopted fan.
Wow, glad to have you.
We're just excited. I got to say this from a political perspective. Isn't the competition making us all better?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah, I think to some degree that depends on the strength of the competition. And I guess if I were going to say my one criticism of both campaigns is that this hasn't been the most ideas-centric campaign. It's been more a discussion, I think, of each candidate's respective flaws or perceived flaws or alleged flaws, and less about the issues. And to some degree, that's a reflection of the way politics is nationally. It's, as I said earlier, which person are you going to vote for to lead the Senate over the next couple of years is a very important part of that. And so you get kind of the red team, blue team, and that aspect of it. But I'd like to see them tonight through the rest of the campaign, whatever it may be, focusing more on those issues.
All right, Jeff, do you have anything for Kyle? Or?
Well, Kyle, I tell you, looking at it from your perspective, and you're in the largest newspaper in the state. What's been your perspective as you've been listening to folks from across the state in terms of they have been talking about the issues? Do you think that's going to? How do you think that will impact voter turnout?
That's an interesting question. I've been asking a lot of people, involved in campaigns, not necessarily these, other politicos statewide, how enthusiastic they sense the electorate being. And I think it's kind of an open question right now. Is what voter enthusiasm looks like. I mean, you see it in some of the opinion polling, the likely voter screen, weeding out a certain number of people and what that's going to look like. So, I think we're kind of in this rut politically, and I don't blame these two campaigns at all for being particularly bad about it. But I think this is what our politics is right now, and it's unfortunate. And I do hear from a lot of people who wish it was otherwise. As someone who believes in the power of the market, I would like to think that at some point the consumer, i.e. the voter, is going to get what they're looking for out of one of these producers, i.e. candidates at some point.
Well, what do you think about we have a libertarian in both races that right now is polling 5 to 7%. They never get that on election day, but do you think that that's achievable given the anti-incumbent climate we have now, or anti-establishment better, since neither one of these are coming?
I think it depends on how many people realize we could drag this thing out into December and January if they simply vote for the Libertarian as a protest vote. I mean, look, if you like what the Libertarian has to say, if you're just that disgusted with the two parties, by all means, vote for the Libertarian. But if it's just a pure protest vote, and I know people do that, I have a hard time believing that candidate's going to get much more support than usual, than their party usually gets. So if you figure all you're going to do is go to a runoff, go ahead, unless you just like that candidate, go ahead and make up your mind and vote for one of the two, I'd say.
If this goes into a runoff, who has the distinct advantage?
You generally say the Republican, but the really fascinating dynamic about this is what if they both go into runoffs, not on the same day? You essentially have the campaigns within the party not necessarily within the same party not being in sync either at that point. So I think the one thing that we can probably be sure of seeing if that happens is some effort in the legislature to make sure that we never end up in this situation again.
Yeah, there may be a lot of circling back after this election cycle. Kyle Wingfield, AJC.com, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. You can find him, 3 or 4 times a week at least?
Yeah, you can find me in the paper Thursday and Sunday, and online, pretty much Monday through Friday.
Perfect.
So,
well,
absolutely.
pleasure having you on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We've got about 2 or 3 minutes before game time, so I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Jeff, you want to come back in? And we've got, a few minutes of camera time left here. This worked out perfect. We've been on for about an hour, 4 minutes. We have it down. We're actually going to slightly outlast the beginning of the debate. As you can see, we've got a few Swofford people that have shown up, and it might be about 2 or 3% of the attendance.
It's like, where's Waldo?
While y'all were doing some of this all-star lineup, I walked through the hall for a few moments.
Yeah.
Ran into former Congressman Buddy Darden. And he said, Jeff.
He's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat. Served in Congress before Bob Barr did. And he said, Jeff.
3 minutes, folks, if y'all want to find a seat.
This is a circus. But it's a one-ring circus. And this is the vibe in this room, folks. It's like an old-time political rally. There's true emotion going on here. These are real folks that have taken a day off work. They've come down to Central Georgia. We've heard from some of the all-stars from our 2 hosts here, but let me tell you what, the folks behind us, I'll tell you, this is going to be a great night in Perry, Georgia.
Yeah, it is. We are excited to be here. We're going to keep broadcasting until the candidates walk out. I hope that it'll record. The webcast will be recording, Charles? Okay, that's fine. So the webcast will still be going. We're going to try to get the response from the crowd here, and then we are actually right in the press den here, so we will have to switch to live tweeting, live Facebook posting. We may be able to sneak out and grab some interviews from some folks. But I mean, you know, we really got a lot of folks on the show today. We apologize it wasn't able to be streamed over the interweb, if you will. There's some Skype issues. Apparently there's a fair going on outside. So in addition to the carnival in here, there's a fair going on outside. So a lot of people.
Great environment.
Yeah, I mean, we're right dead center in the middle of Georgia. We're right in the middle of a very heated race. And y'all have a decision to make on November 4th. And let's wrap it up there and wake up Senator David Perdue and Governor Nathan Deal on November 5th. Don't ruin Christmas.
Absolutely. Just like Kyle said, unless you just are in love with one of the Libertarian candidates, control of the United States Senate is at stake. There are 2 serious candidates here tonight, and folks in Georgia need to pick one, and let's make a decision and get this thing over with. Have a great Christmas.
I feel like we need to have Michael Buffer come out and do a let's get ready to rumble announcement.
That's exactly how it
They are
feels.
going to be coming out of both sides of the arena here.
And it's going to be deafening.
It really will be. I have a feeling that we're coming out now. Well, they are clearly coming out now. We got to cut it out. We're going to let the crowd reverberate.
You know, I would say this is the sound of freedom behind us.